Now to the panel. The gloves are off now. I'm joined by John Ruddick, commentator and author of Make the Liberal Party Great Again, and communications and political strategist Christy McSweeney. Christy, John, welcome.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Christy.
Hi, JR.
It doesn't seem like this tension with China is dying down anytime soon. Beijing has doubled down, calling Australia evil in state-run media, even warning Australia's warships to stay out of the South China Sea. They write, as a war hound of the United States, Australia should restrain its arrogance. Particularly, its warships must not come to China's coastal areas to flex muscles, or else it will swallow the bitter pills. John Ruddick, they sound awfully like war-like threats. I hope they don't intend to make hay on this.
Well, look, it is a very serious situation. I think what's happened with the Chinese since the very likely election of Joe Biden to the White House is that Beijing is cocky. Trump was the first president since China had began opening up in the 70s to call them out. They detested Trump. Biden's been their best mate for 30 years in the Senate, so they're feeling cocky. Now, something that the average Aussie needs to know about this situation, which is alarming in many ways, China's got bad relations with almost all of its neighbours, like Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, India. They had a little shooting match with India recently, even Vietnam, Canada, Britain, France. So this is not unique to us. At the same rate that we've been sort of having deteriorating relations with China, so have all these other countries. I don't know why China thinks it's in their interest. It is alarming. I'm not normally somebody who agrees with Scott Morrison on everything, but I do agree with his strong language yesterday. I also agree with what he told the party room today. We've said our piece. It was strong. Look, we've got to start to de-escalate this, OK? There's a lot at stake. It was a highly offensive tweet, but look, at the end of the day, it was a tweet. Being smart, Alex, OK, but I think we should just try to get this behind us.
Christy, the ambassador said today that Scott Morrison was reacting. Was it an overreaction?
I don't think it is an overreaction. I think there's been a number of events occurring, of course, with the doctored Twitter imagery, which, let's not forget, the Chinese people don't have access to Twitter in their country. So if we take that away, this is purely a diplomatic tool for China to use social media to signal to Australia, and more to the point, Chris, to signal to Australian Chinese and Chinese Australians that China expects them to think of themselves as Chinese first and Australians second. And we know that that has caused a number of problems over recent years through our public service, through our universities in particular. And this is an escalation of the expectations of China to Chinese citizens or Chinese dual nationals living here in Australia, that they will be called on and the expectations that they have to meet by the Chinese government. Of course, I think that the Prime Minister was right to say what he did. China are very strategic in how they engage in our region. Of course, they've started with trade. Now they're using social media. What will be very interesting to China is that they know that we have formed a really strong alliance with the UK. They know that we had the support of 50 other countries to back Australia's lead on the independent, as we called it, investigation into the origination of COVID-19 in China. And so China will be very worried that Australia will gather a coalition of interests around us, and that coalition will be very powerful, including the UK, and start moving the chess pieces around in the South China Sea. So this is a preemptive strike on their behalf, because, you know, we are not, if we team up with the UK and other nations in the region, particularly India, we will not be acting unilaterally against China. We will bring others with us to work out some of these diplomatic and trade issues and gather support at the World Trade Organization. So they're preempting that very ferociously, though.
Very aggressively. Look, sadly for Australian exporters, this is going to be a long game. This is not going to be solved within the next 2 years. Now, Defence Chief Angus Campbell has been convinced to back away from the idea of stripping SAS soldiers of bravery medals. John, how could they get this so wrong right from the get-go?
Look, it's just jaw-dropping, Chris. I mean, destructive woke politics have seemed to have infected all parts of society, but you would have thought that in the top echelon of our military that they would have an immunity to it. No. They seem to be infected by this nonsense as well. Now, if you're a young Aussie and you've gone up, you've enlisted in the military, you've gone over to Afghanistan, you've got into the SAS, I think you're a pretty good chance that you're a hero and you deserve a medal. Now, there are some serious allegations against a very small number of people that have not yet been tried in court. Let's see how that goes. But, I mean, on what planet did it ever make any sense for someone to suggest, well, everybody who got a medal connected with these guys can't get it? Now, what's this whole attitude going to be doing for future enlistment? It's going to be thinking, gee, well, I wanted to go and join the military and be a hero for my country. But, gee, if I'm going to be treated like this, I don't want to join. And what about people who are already in the army? They might think, well, I think I might quit a bit sooner than I was going to. So I don't like this one little bit.
Yeah, terrible for morale. You're dead right. They got it wrong from the get-go, trying to be too woke and trying to be too cleansing of their own rakes. I want to talk about the West Australian Premier, Mark McGowan, who we've bashed up endlessly from this desk and on many programs. Well, today he confirmed he will lift the border to Victoria and New South Wales next week. But, of course, hang on. New South Wales have to have no more local transmissions for 3 further days. This is what they were doing all along, Christy, wasn't it? You know, this 28-day benchmark was about elimination, both Queensland and WA.
Of course it was, and we saw that in Victoria as well, where they refused to admit it and held the economy and 600,000 small businesses in Victoria to ransom, and we're all supposed to just forget about that. They didn't have those significant problems here in Western Australia, but of course in Queensland the tourism sector has been absolutely decimated under in the aim of eliminating the virus. Not everybody took on Premier Berejiklian's viewpoint of having the economy tick on and coexist with the new COVID normal. But he has bowed to the industry pressure here in Western Australia. There has been a very strong push from industry leaders in WA saying there are workforce shortages in the mining industry. We can't keep going on. We are beginning to look like the laughingstock of the Federation. If you think you are going to hold out on keeping the borders closed till the election in March, a la Anastasia Palaszczuk tactics, we're not wearing it. I think he was going to have to come to an arrangement at some point, and I'm glad that that has happened. But of course, Chris, you know, for a couple of weeks now, West Australians have been able to travel to the ACT, which has an open border with both Victoria and New South Wales. And if you read the Western Australian COVID travel advice, in the fine print it says, yes, you are able to travel to the ACT in Queensland, but if you knowingly come into contact with someone from Victoria and New South Wales, you have to quarantine on your way back to Perth.
Rubbish.
I am glad the Premier and the Cabinet realised that that was just absolutely ridiculous and unable to be policed or enforced.
Yeah. Keystone medical advice. Now, this is one of your favourite topics, John Ruddick. The Morrison government has fired off a please explain to ABC Chair Ita Buttrose over that Four Corners program that delved into the private lives of cabinet ministers. I know what they're arguing. They're saying, well, hang on, it was so one-sided. What about independence? But, you know, as a coverer of stories and a delver of research, I've got to say, if you've only got 2 instances to go to air with, you're not going to wait 6 years until someone from Labor likes to dob their MPs in. That wasn't going to happen. This is going to go nowhere.
Well, look, it was a complete non-issue, this story. Henry Kissinger was no Robert Redford, Chris, but he did say that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. And I used to be a staffer for your mate Ross Cameron in Canberra many years ago. And I was in Parliament House there for a while, and I saw, young staffers do have a habit of falling in love with their boss. That's just a fact. It's probably been happening since democracy began. But look, on the ABC, the Liberal Party has won 7 of the last 9 elections in this country, okay, which is pretty dominant, you'd think. And every year, the Liberal Party whether it's John Howard or Tony Abbott or Malcolm Turnbull or Scott Morrison, they write out a cheque for $1 billion to the ABC. They say, here you go, ABC, here's your $1 billion. The ABC says, great, we'll build a bigger bat to hit you over the head with, because that's all they do. Look, Paul Fletcher is one of the weakest political people I've ever met in my life. So he's written this tough little letter to Ida. She's just going to blow her nose with it. There's only one answer here. We need to privatise the ABC. That's what we need to do.
Oh, dear.
And one day that will happen.
Christy, why do they bother, really?
Oh, look, I'm going to take issue with JR's original comments. I can say I was a young staffer once and I've been in and out of Canberra for 16 years, and I'm going to put it on the record here and now. I have never been tempted towards any politicians in any federal or state government. So I'm just putting that on the table,
I believe you
guys.
Christy. You're all class.
If that is a narrative that, you know, JR, of course you've seen it with your own eyes, but, you know, I don't know, I've got some doubt there that people engage in this sort of thing en masse. But, of course, some people do, like any workplace. These issues aren't unique to politics at all. They're certainly not unique to Parliament House. There is some unique perspective in the fact that people in Parliament House, ministers of the Crown, are paid by the taxpayer. But the same thing could be said for medical professionals working in our major hospitals who are paid by state governments, who we know the medical profession, particularly in a hospital environment, is rife with bullying and affairs, sexual harassment.
No hanky-panky in there. Come on. Not at all.
But if we want to make comparisons of people who are paid by the taxpayer, I think that's a fairly good one. And we could subpoena some of the documents that go through the College of various surgeons in terms of what goes on in those systems. So it is not unique to Parliament House, but of course there are problems that occur on all sides of politics.
Yes, Christy McSweeney, I've got to leave it there. Christy, you're the power broker here on this panel. Don't worry about that. John Ruddick, thank you very much for your time as well.
Thanks, Christy. Okay.
Good to have you on.
Thank you. Bye.